At the crossroads of Europe, Asia and Africa, Greece comprises territory that is both continental and also an infinite number of islands in the Aegean Sea, with notably the Saronic Islands near the capital Athens and the Cyclades. Greek islands come in all shapes and sizes. Many of them are tiny with no really high land and have never been inhabited. Others have always been peopled in spite of their volcanic activity. Some are very difficult to get to, while others have been inhabited since ancient times. The Mediterranean climate and the scarcity of arable land have conditioned life in the islands. In winter, rainfall fills the water tables. But water is scarce, and in Greek mythology it was protected by the gods. According to legend, the city of Athens owes its foundation to a spring. It also owes its rich heritage and its place in history to its access to the Aegean Sea. This is an asset, but there's also a risk. It attracts enemies. Greece's unity depends to a large extent on the Orthodox religion. 98% of Greeks claim to belong to it. The Orthodox Church is the second biggest real estate owner in the country after the state. And the Greek constitution states that it is the prevailing religion in Greece. Priests are very much involved in society. In Greece, there's a very low percentage of people under 15. The young are the future of an aging population. Mediterranean populations live longer than people elsewhere in Europe. This is no doubt because of the way of life, which is more marked in the islands than in the cities. The population of Athens has tripled since the Second World War. More than 40% of the Greeks live in this pulsating town, mainly because of a strong rural exodus. Both in the capital and the islands, the traditional way of life ensures cohesion. Greek housing has marked the history of architecture. With its compact blocks and its cubic forms, it has influenced contemporary architects like Le Corbusier. White walls reflect the light, and the small openings keep out the heat. The geometrical layout of towns has inspired town planners as far away as America. Greece holds a prominent place in history, in thought, in artistic creation. Endlessly imitated, it has, for centuries, served as a reference for its shapes and its rhythms. The bouzouki is a cousin of the lute. It's part of the landscape, like the vine and the olive tree. Despite the lack of pastures, livestock farming is one of the ancestral resources. Greece's geography has forced it to turn towards the Mediterranean. Fishing, which has always been on a small scale, commercial shipping and aquaculture already existed in ancient times. Industrial activity has greatly increased the country's dependence on energy. Greece possesses a vast number of wind turbines, which allows for the diversification of energy production. And 300 days of sunshine a year guarantee the future of solar power. Whether it takes its materials from the sea or from beneath the ground, craftwork has, since antiquity, represented a large part of economic activity. The Greeks have made great efforts to make the country as a whole accessible by road. And when the road ends, the boat generally takes over. If you include the thousands of islands, Greece has about 15,000 kilometers of coastline. The boat is an essential means of transport. It is one of the driving factors of the tourist industry. After merchant shipping, tourism is the country's second economic sector. With guaranteed sunshine, a seductive lifestyle, and exoticism to hand, these are all good reasons to visit Greece. The Athenians have baptized their city Cementopolis, the city of cement. The green spaces only cover 2.5 square meters per inhabitant, when in fact the European Union recommends 4 times as many. In the pedestrian streets, the Greeks mix and meet each other. The exchange of ideas and opinions gave birth to democracy here. A few green spaces bring some fresh air to the city, but you can count the real havens of peace on the fingers of one hand in this city that's been sacrificed to the motor car. Vehicles generally run on one-way streets. To keep it all moving, an alternating traffic system based on the number plates has been introduced, with the result that Athenians often own several cars to get round the rules. Alternating traffic suits taxis, bikes and motorbikes, but huge investment was made to develop public transport for the Olympic Games in 2004. Dedicated sites were attributed, particularly to the tramway. For years, the Athens metro was just one line. Today, there are 3. The sound of the tympanon, a traditional Greek instrument, can still be heard in some quarters. Athens is not a museum city, but references to antiquity are countless. It's obvious when you linger at the many examples of neoclassical architecture, which takes antiquity as its model. In the 19th century, the Greeks favored a return to their origins. They wanted to erase the memory of 400 years spent under Ottoman occupation. On Syntagma Square, outside the Greek parliament, the Evzones stand guard. The 400 pleats in their skirts refer to the 400 years of Turkish domination. With their startling costume, they are national monuments. A soldier keeps an eye on their appearance because they are not allowed to move, except when it's time to change the guard. The pom-pom at the end of their shoes, in fact, concealed a blade to be used in hand-to-hand fighting. Athens moves seamlessly from era to era. As a direct descendant from antiquity, the Panathenaic Stadium is entirely clad in marble. It's a reminder that the Greeks invented the Olympic Games. A new stadium was built. It was renovated and covered over with a roof designed by the Spanish architect Calatrava for the 2004 Games. Eight hills rise above Athens. In summer, the Lycabet Hill is like a cool oasis. At the top, the St. George Church is a highly popular place for baptisms. On another hill stands the nerve center of the ancient city, the Acropolis. Emanuela Papalenou.
Behind me, we have the Propylea, which is the monumental entrance to the sanctuary, to the real sacred area of the Acropolis.
For decades, they've been restoring buildings damaged by the centuries, earthquakes, pollution, careless repairs and pillaging. The Acropolis was first and foremost a strategic point.
So now we are on top of the Acropolis. Acropolis in Greek means the highest point of a city.
Throughout history, the buildings have been put to various uses. This, of course, has not helped to keep them in good condition.
After the Greeks converted into Christians, Parthenon became a Christian church. It was converted into a mosque by the Turks. And then, finally, when we got our independence, we decided that it was better to leave it as it is and restore it.
Various innovations were incorporated into the designing of the Parthenon.
This is the first time that a temple has two entrances, one east and one north. One dedicated to Athena, the other one dedicated to Poseidon.
Most of the colonnades and the capitals have been restored, but radical measures have had to be used for certain pieces like the caryatids, the famous columns in the form of female figures.
The caryatids that you see here are replicas. The originals are in the museum. You can see the museum from here. And when you are in the museum, you see all the sculpture that belongs to Parthenon.
The new Acropolis Museum is built on piles to respect the ancient remains uncovered at the site. The building is 10 times as spacious as the old museum. It uses natural light to show to better advantage the 1,000 or more items retrieved from the Acropolis. The original caryatids are here. Some of them are still in need of intensive care. The sculptures from the Parthenon are the ones that have survived, because the majority were taken away and are now a very long way from the Acropolis. At the bottom of the hill in the lower town lies the Agora, a vast area occupied by various buildings. The assembly of Athenian citizens used to meet on the Agora. It is the very basis of Greek democracy, which was not such a popular democracy in actual fact, since only a small number of the people of Athens were allowed to vote. Also at the foot of the Acropolis sits the old quarter of Plaka, an assorted collection of recent or more remote periods, composite styles, places of worship, and ways of life. The city of Athens has developed without any homogeneity. The Monastiraki district butts onto the others, and one is barely able to see where it starts and finishes. Markets are often a reflection of everyday life. In days of antiquity, meat was a dish reserved for religious celebrations. And in the shops frequented by tourists, one era flows smoothly into the next. When night falls, the excitement moves towards Plaka, where there is music and fun.
διάσει, τραγούδια μαραδιάσει και τις παινιές σου αλλάζει και μισή από παιδιά.
In the trendy district of Gazi, a former gasworks is cranking up the pressure of the night. Later in the night, traditional music takes over in the Bouzoukis, those restaurant nightclubs where you dance till dawn. At about 10 kilometers southwest of Athens lies the port of Piraeus. In ancient times, long walls protected the road leading to the capital. That indicates the strategic importance of the place. The maritime power of Athens, in fact, would never have been so strong without the port of Piraeus. Piraeus used to be an island. Today, it is one of the biggest ports in the world in terms of the number of passengers transported. It's the main departure point for those setting off for the islands. Since ancient times, Athenians have appreciated the proximity of the islands of the Gulf of Salonika, where they could easily go for a change of scenery. On the other hand, the Athenians really could not stand the insolent wealth accumulated by the island of Aegina. They besieged it for a long time and brought about its ruin. The approach to the island was reputed to be dangerous because of the reefs. Today, nothing disturbs the peace and quiet of Aegina. And yet it played a key role in the country's struggle against the Ottomans. Aegina was even the first capital of free Greece. To what does this apparently peaceful island owe its good fortune? To the central position it occupies in the Saronic archipelago. The island has become a necessary stopping-off point. Its prosperity was such that it created one of the first coins in history. It was called the obol. But such prosperity is part of a very distant past.
There are not many fish here, just dolphins and seals.
In the Greek islands, the sea can provide income that the land cannot give. But it's inland that you find safety. The Byzantines, the Arabs, the Venetians, and the Ottomans all carried out hostile incursions throughout the islands, and Aegina was not spared. To defend themselves, people took refuge inland. At the top of a hill, a temple is dedicated to the seductive goddess Aphaia. Like an eagle's nest on a hill, Palaeokora is the former capital of the island. It contains about 30 churches, but this Byzantine city has had over 500 religious buildings, another obvious sign of wealth. The island of Aegina owes much of its celebrity to a small tree originating in the Near East, the pistachio tree. Its fruit contains a well-known edible seed, the pistachio nut. Aegina pistachios are reckoned to be the best in Greece. Pistachio trees could even be the dowry for young women of marriageable age. Barbara Kyriasi.
Είναι μια There's only one quality, but we separate those that we just leave as they were picked from the tree from those that we grill. We salt some of them, and others we leave plain. Those that are shelled are used in pastries and jams. They're delicious.
Okay.
In ancient times, the few hundred meters that separate the mainland from the island of Poros could be crossed on foot. The narrow channel explains the name of the island. Poros in Greek means passage. The name is not uncommon in the islands, where there are many places called Poros. In this small town, the contrast with the bustle of nearby Athens is particularly marked. Poros is really made up of two islands. One of them is of volcanic origin. There, nature has made use of the rich earth to express all its variety. Kyriakos Manesis.
The island of Poros is near the Peloponnese, which means you can get here from Athens in an hour and a half. You can come by plane from abroad, hire a car, and come to Poros by road. Otherwise, to get to almost all the other Greek islands, you have to take a boat. Poros is very green compared with other islands.
Throughout history, many have wanted to take possession of Poros, understandably, considering its strategic position. Many of the Greek islands are made of limestone. This is a fragile rock deeply eroded by the waves. The indented coastline provides many places for anchoring. The island of Hydra is a range of mountains sitting on the sea. The rocky, inhospitable coast scatters its cliffs into the waves, leaving very few places for sailors to land, except in the main town. And yet, in the 19th century, the island was an important maritime power. There are no cars or motorbikes on Hydra because of a ban designed to ensure the peace and quiet of the surroundings. Mules are called into service for carrying luggage. The steep slopes climb up to the 600-meter summit. There are few places, even in Greece, where you can find such serenity. Here, everything inspires tranquility, relaxation, and the gentle way of life. It's not surprising that artists find inspiration in the atmosphere on Hydra. Natasha Best is a painter. She's been living here for 20 years. The island has always had the same fascination for her.
For a painter, I think it's one of those places, one of those miraculous places where you find inspiration at every step because of the light, because of the fact that the place is practically unchanged since the 18th century. There are no cars, no scooters, no noise. The rhythm of life is so different. There's the village aspect, and then the beauty of the architecture, which is quite specific to here, because most of the other Greek islands don't have this architecture at all. The people who came to settle in Hydra in the 14th century were, in fact, for the most part, Albanian emigres who fled here after the Turkish conquest of the Peloponnese. They were very primitive people who soon turned to piracy and made their fortunes in that way. They became very rich. And then, from being pirates, they turned into merchants. As they got richer, they wanted to build houses that were more like palaces, to show off the wealth they'd acquired.
The archontica, the beautiful old residences, were built for the rich families of shipbuilders. Several members of the family that lived here held political positions of great responsibility in Greece. The delicacy of the decorations in the Church of the Assumption of the Virgin demonstrates the standard of living in the Hydra of the 17th century. The taste for things beautiful has been upheld. You can even see this in a chemist's shop. To keep his bakery running and to make his bread, the baker needs ingredients that cannot be found on the island. The soil on Hydra is in fact barren. Nothing grows here. Fruit, vegetables, and basic necessities. Everything has to be imported and then carried by mule. The name Hydra comes from the word hydor in ancient Greek, which gave hydro and means water. But the island has no water. It has to be brought in by boat and stored in tanks. The aridity of the island's landscape is striking. The meager layer of arable earth was in most places washed away down the slopes long ago. A few plant species have nevertheless managed to cling on, like the agaves. To get to know Hydra, you have to walk. You can also go along the coasts in a water taxi. The water taxi can set you on shore at places that are difficult to get to, and the trip is worth every penny. Some Greek islands are enormous. Euboea is the second biggest in area after Crete. It stretches for 175 kilometers along the mainland with only narrow straits between them. You can opt for the boat to take you to Euboea, but there are also two bridges near the main town of the island, Chalcis. This is where the two shores are very close together. There's a very strong current here that, curiously, regularly changes direction. This is a bizarre phenomenon, which is explained by the difference in sea level between the north and the south of the straits. According to a legend, the famous philosopher Aristotle drowned himself here, in despair, because he couldn't solve the enigma. During ancient times, the wide access to the sea encouraged the inhabitants of Euboea to leave their island. The first founders of the Greek colonies in the Mediterranean basin set out from here. But access to the sea was not the only reason the ancient Greeks left their homeland to found colonies in the Mediterranean. The lack of local resources was another. Euboea is a very mountainous island. Whole regions of it are impossible for farming and the working of the land. The many mountains are a reminder that the Titans, those famous giants of Greek mythology, lived on the island. They defended themselves by using rocks as weapons. The highest point of the island rises to 1,700 meters. Euboea has a mild climate, and in spring the hills are covered with flowers. These are two conditions that are propitious to bees. One of the best honeys in Greece is produced here. References to honey abound throughout antiquity. The god Eros, god of love, dipped his arrows in honey before firing them. Among the ancient Greeks, honey provided the only source of sugar. Theophilos Balatzos.
What you see here is pine honey, but there are many other different sorts of honey.
Open grazing is part of Greek tradition. Animals can move around unhindered in their search for food. Herds are often of just a few animals for the family's needs. In the countryside of Euboea, the Orthodox tradition is firmly entrenched. The Orthodox Church reveres a great number of saints. Some of them enjoy exceptional fame.
This is Saint Ioannis the Russian. His church is here, and people come from all over the world to venerate him.
The worship of Saint John the Russian began on the territory of today's Turkey. In the 20th century, his relics were transferred to the town of Prokopi, where he is the object of fervent devotion. A church was built in his honor. Pentecost is a high point in the liturgical calendar. The Orthodox take communion by eating leavened bread, a basic difference between them and the Catholics. After the ceremony, the blessed bread is distributed among the faithful.
It's called artos. Artos means bread in ancient Greek. They are large loaves of bread, and then the priest blesses that. Human beings are spirit and body together, so God blesses all the materials we use.
The Cyclades lie to the southeast of Athens. This group of islands is so called because they stretch in the form of a circle right in the middle of the Aegean Sea. The Cyclades look like the pieces of a puzzle around an island whose name has gone around the world, Mykonos. These 16th century mills haven't worked for a very long time, but the island still has the same power to attract. The village of Kora, lying alongside the sea, did not think it needed to defend itself against pirates, for the simple reason that it maintained very good relations with them. The sea was for a long time the only resource in an unforgiving land. It wasn't until the 18th century that Mykonos found prosperity by exploiting other resources. Today, its aura has given it an enviable position. Mykonos is perfectly adapted to the environment. The buildings are designed to resist strong sun and violent winds. And the tiny streets are laid out like a maze to confuse possible aggressors. Today, however, there is a warm welcome for visitors.
No more paint. Boat comes with paint.
The layout of the area is very functional. You get to the first floor of the houses up an outside staircase. In the district of Alexandra, there are a number of houses that have direct access to the sea. In the past, wheat used to be brought here for the mills. It has been nicknamed Little Venice. Further inland, you can understand why the island remained almost deserted till the 16th century. The climate is very dry. There are no permanent watercourses, and the relief is not high enough to bring heavy rain. After the springtime, the earth is soon burnt dry. There are wells that go down to the water table and ensure a supply of water. The monastery of Paniaga Turliani was founded in the 16th century, close to a spring. After being pillaged and destroyed, it was rebuilt 2 centuries later. It's true that the monastic establishment, with its elegant sculpted marble bell tower, must have attracted unwanted attention. Well sheltered from the wind, the beaches of the south enjoy an international reputation. Paradise Beach fosters the ongoing myth of Mykonos.
Hello, I'm Sasa from Mykonos, the king of Mykonos. This is the best island in the world. Everybody come in this beach because this beach is free. Everybody enjoy, everybody happy, everybody love life.
On Mykonos, the show is non-stop, whatever the hour. The main thing is to be in the right place at the right time. And when the sun goes down, you need to be in the front row to admire and to have fun. When night falls, the temperature eases off. The shops reopen as the stars come out. This is the time to choose a work of art. And later in the evening, the temperature rises again.
Well, with my champagne taste and your beer bottle pockets, I'll be having pheasant while you're dining with the peasants, dunking donuts in a diner without me.
As we head for the south of the Aegean, we pass the island of Ios. This island was far enough away for the ancient Romans to use it as a place of exile for convicted prisoners. With its port well sheltered from the wind, Kora is the main town of the island. With a few exceptions, the term Kora is always the name of the main town in the Greek islands. The term, in fact, refers to the lands around the ancient town. The terraced plots of land allow farming on the steep slopes. The extreme dryness of Ios comes as a shock. In summer, there is a strong north wind called the meltem. It is at the far end of a desolate stretch of land that the tomb of Homer, author of the Iliad, is thought to be. Many are skeptical about the sepulchre, since there is doubt even as to whether Homer really existed. In the extreme south of the Cyclades, we find the impressive volcanic island of Santorini. The parts above the water are the remains of a volcano that caved in more than 3,500 years ago after an enormous eruption. But even though the last eruption was in 1950, volcanic activity is real and is monitored continuously. In fact, 4 kilometers down lies the volcano's magma chamber, a lava reservoir that is still pretty full. Santorini has the characteristic color of volcanic earth. Fira, the administrative center of the island, stretches along the edge of the caldera. Its spectacular situation defies the laws of balance, 300 meters above sea level. After the great eruption of the 16th century BC, the island remained unoccupied for nearly 200 years. Today, every last square meter of its limited space is used. There's a cable car to take you rapidly down to the old port of Santorini. It's a dizzying ride down the side of a volcano. The journey used to be done on a mule back. And there are still people keen on trying it. A boat takes you to the islet of Nea Kameni in the center of the caldera. Two islets seem to float on the surface of the caldera. They are much more recent than the island proper, with volcanic matter that is distinctly less decomposed. The volcanic activity is very closely monitored so as not to put at risk the safety of visitors. Risks of an eruption are always kept in mind.
From here we can see Thirasia Island over there. No, it's not dangerous until now. I speak with geologists every week, so they told me we are safe until now. But if something happens, they told me that we have 8 hours to leave from the island.
All over, wisps of gas and smoke are reminders that the volcano is well and truly active.
Yes, I know that it might erupt, but I hope we'll have enough time to get away from here by boat.
Meanwhile, you can enjoy the warm water, heated by subterranean springs.
I love Santorini. It's my first time.
Inland, farming has been able to develop on a much richer earth than in the caldera. Local produce is displayed in the village.
This is a liqueur made from red grapes, and that's nectar, also made with red grapes. It's dry, and this is eau de vie.
During the day, it is very hot. At night, damp air comes in off the sea. Fortunately, the Meltem softens the extremes, and the island enjoys a microclimate that favors grapes. The vines grow close to the ground to avoid the wind. Mathieu Zimopoulos.
Santorini wines have two types. First of all are the dry white wines, and the second is the dessert wine with the name Vinsanto. Vinsanto is a dessert wine from the same grapes, Assyrtiko, but it's sun-dried. For that, it's sweet wine.
Volcanic rock is very porous. It absorbs the humidity and releases it little by little to the plants. As the island goes through long periods of drought, the water stored in this way is a precious insurance for one of the oldest vine cultures in the world. The heritage of Santorini is deeply marked by the world of the wine growers.
We've made cellars in order to obtain a constant temperature all throughout the year and to keep the wine. There aren't many cellars like this one left, but I've kept mine so I can get together with friends. Cheers!
Vines were grown on the island well before the catastrophe, as has been verified on the site by Akrotiri. Akrotiri, the ruins of a flourishing city discovered in 1967. The towns of the Cyclades today all reproduce the same overall plan. The town was destroyed by earthquakes, which preceded the eruption of the volcano. As in Pompeii, it was buried under a thick layer of volcanic ash. But the inhabitants must have had time to get away. The site, protected by the ash for 3,500 years, enjoys a new protection today. Along the coasts, the beaches have an unusual color. The sand is not sand, but pulverized volcanic rock. At the northern point, the island reveals the strata as a geological cross-section beneath the village of Euboea. Only wealthy sailors owned a house right at the top. The place is exceptional for events that are exceptional. At the end of the day, the spectacle of the setting sun always attracts spectators. The sun has gone, but Santorini will be awake for a long time. The night is being prepared in the welcome cool air. We can change our rhythm. The Greek islands are scattered over the Aegean Sea, uniting the same people, upholding the same traditions. Well beyond what you can see, they put their imprint on history. From the most remote islands to the city of Athens, Greece, at once unique and multiple, is endlessly renewed, to the rhythm of the bouzouki.